Hi. Welcome to the final episode of our series about the White Abalone Recovery Program. In our last episode, we talked with the Aquarium of the Pacific's own Danny Munoz, who told us all about breeding and growing abalone until they're big enough to survive. Which brings us to the scariest part of this whole adventure, releasing our lab-raised abalone into the ocean. How can we make sure our precious baby abalone will survive out there in the cold and gloomy kelp forest? They gotta have enough food. They gotta have safe places to hide. There can't be too many predators. I mean, how do we know they can survive the transition from an aquarium to the ocean? As Danny explains, our intrepid abalone scientist answered all these questions with the help of a test subject, the red abalone. So, you used red abalone to confirm all this was going to work.
Yeah, since the white abalone, of course, are endangered species, we do have red abalone right off our coast here, as well as here at the aquarium, and those are not considered endangered. So even though they're two different species, they still behave the same way. So we use the red abalones, we spawn the reds, we raise them. We did some nutritional analysis. You know, we wanted to mimic exactly what we were going to do just so we knew what hurdles we had to cross. And then those were outplanted, and we monitored the red abalone for several years. It really allowed us to kind of perfect our methods.
That means the entire project actually had to be done twice. Thank goodness the red abalone were able to play this role. The test runs indicated that lab-raised abalone could survive in the wild if we followed a certain method.
One of the biggest issues we deal with is predation. A lot of octopuses and lobsters like to show up at these sites, so we got to make sure that these abs are protected.
A major part of this was protecting the little abalone from predators like the octopus using something called an Abalone Safe, which, you guessed it, is basically a safe for abalone. Now, Danny, octopuses are famous for their ability to get into just about anything.
Yeah.
But they can't get into these things? The safes really are octopus-proof?
And lobster-proof. And that was actually a cool project that we actually tested here at the aquarium in one of our exhibits. We put animals in there just to see how they would deal with the surge and other animals. Honestly, while they're in the safes, they're protected. It's got a plastic mesh over it. It's got a concrete base, and then we put 2 ropes over the top. So there's really no way in or out unless we're down there actually unhooking those ropes.
I had a look at these safes myself. Gotta admit, I couldn't find a way into them. And I mean, octopuses are pretty smart, but they only got that teeny little beak to break into things. And if I can't do it, But I digress. There was one other issue that had to be resolved for outplanting to succeed. We needed to find habitats for the abalone. Abalone like kelp forest, but they like them a bit rough. Roll the dive footage!
So when we go to these sites and we do these surveys, each team of divers is assigned a specific area. A lot of times you can't see your hand in front of your face, so you need to be really good with the compass, and you definitely got to carry a couple of lights with you.
Yikes! Look at these places! Pack your motion sickness pills, everybody! So, what does an ideal outplanting site look like?
There's a couple things we really look for. Number one is kelp. We need a lot of algae, a lot of kelp. The water's very green, a little murky, which really means it just has a lot of nutrients, which is great. Without food, these animals are not gonna survive. And then we really want like a rocky structure in their environment. You're not gonna find these guys out in the sand flats or in seagrass. We're looking for big rocks, just a lot of places where they can really, again, hide in these crevices.
Dive teams identified several of these sites along our coast. And then came the time for the outplanting itself.
Yeah, so the outplanting, I personally think is one of the cooler parts, because of course we're taking these animals and we're taking them back to the wild and we're gonna repopulate the ocean, right? And hopefully they'll grow up and spawn and keep the species going. But the way it works is we've got those safe modules already outplanted at the site. And we just take them down with us, we place the animals in there, and then we make sure the tops are secure. They're in there for anywhere from a month to a couple of months. The important thing for us is to go back and make sure we're feeding them, because we do have to put kelp in there for them to survive. After about a month or two, we come back, lift up the tops, and we just kind of let the animals crawl out on their own. We really hope at that point the animals are conditioned enough to just come out, find a ledge, and get into like a cave or a crevice and really just hang out there and try to grow up a little bit.
How are the little kiddos doing now?
Overall, they're doing well. One thing that's interesting is that even though we've taken the tops off, most of the ones we're seeing are still attached to the safes. A lot of times you can lift them up, that concrete base I mentioned, and underneath that base, you'll find half a dozen to a dozen abalone still clinging on. But actually might not be a bad spot to hide from octopus and lobsters and things like that. And they feel like they have good cover, and they do. If they're still alive there, it is kind of proof that they do have good cover.
What is the next step?
So as far as the ones that are already out there, we're basically just letting them do their thing and grow up, and we'll keep checking on them. And the hope is that a good portion of these animals can grow up to sexual maturity and spawn on their own, and that becomes a new site where abalone just thrive. And then back here at the aquarium, we're starting to talk with the other partners about a spawn for 2021. Those will be animals that will eventually get put into the program and will be part of hopefully the next outplant, which could be this upcoming year or the following.
The White Abalone Recovery Program has placed thousands of white abalone out in the ocean, and there are thousands more yet to come. If all goes well, these populations will grow, and someday white abalone will once again thrive off our coast. This effort is a wonderful demonstration of what conservation science can do. But it's important to remember that the easiest way to save a species and our entire environment is to protect it to begin with. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and on behalf of the Aquarium of the Pacific and all of the scientists and institutions involved in this endeavor, thank you for your support.